Hi, everyone. Welcome to our presentation tonight on the college process. Some of the counselors are on this webinar as well, but I'm going to start sharing my screen. Just so everyone knows, we are recording this session and we will be posting it on the website. We will also be posting the slides on our Google Classroom page. We will also be meeting with the students tomorrow, and we're going to give them a handout as well. So this information will be shared multiple different times. So feel free to just listen along. We are encouraging all students and parents to listen along tonight. So if you're on here without your parent or if you're on here without your student, please make sure they pop on with us as well. I'm going to start with a share. I'm going to make sure it's going up there. Counselors, are we good? We can see the share. All right, great. We're going to get started with some housekeeping items. I want to make sure that everyone, we've said this a lot and we've shared this a lot, but our Google Classroom page is often a page of a lot of resources for the students. So we always want to make sure that students know about that. We want students to start checking their email regularly. We just sent out our first Wednesday Wisdom of the year, so that's always good to check your email regularly. Also, counselors oftentimes might be checking in with students about certain things during the college process and application process, or have a question or need to see a student. So always good for students to be checking their email regularly. Often Naviance, we put in there updates in terms of college visits. We're using Naviance as a part of our process to send our application. So very good to be on Naviance regularly as well. The FAFSA, we are hearing that it's going out on October 1st. That's our financial aid form. So you want to be looking out for that. And we do have a Q&A tonight. We would like to encourage everyone to listen along. The Q&A is open and the counselors will be helping with that. But we may answer your questions tonight as we go through the slideshow. So best to listen. And again, we're going to have that Q&A session with our students tomorrow as well. I also just want to give a shout out to Brooke Parrott's on here, who helped with the slideshow, and all of the counselors who will be answering your questions throughout this process. We couldn't do this without our whole team. The amount of times that they spend, with students answering questions, giving advice, and of course, those rec letters that we love to write for the students to support them. I just want to thank them as well, our team, as we get started today. We want to keep in mind, just as we talk about this process, to make sure that we trust the process. I think that's one of the things that we want to make sure that students think about in this. We have plenty of students that are, actually a majority of our students overwhelmingly are happy come May. So just important to remember to trust the process. We've been doing this now for years, and our students are leaving here happy, and they're going off to college and they're happy where they are. Very important for students to keep in mind that this is about them and making sure that they're painting a picture about themselves. It's not necessarily about checking boxes, but making sure that they share who they are. We want to also make sure that we're talking again and reminding students about colleges that fit them. They want to make sure that they're thinking about the why in the colleges on their lists. Controlling what you can control as part of that is making sure that the list is reflective of who they are and what fits them. And we understand, again, that this process is stressful. Some of these students are going through this, and parents for the first time. We recognize that. And that, again, is why we're here to answer your questions and be a guide throughout the process. We're around during lunch for students to pop in. Some of the students have already come in and booked appointments with us already this year to talk about the college process. So just keep that in mind along the way, that you're not alone. Your students are not alone. Parents, you're not alone. So make sure that you reach out to us. So that being said, here is the senior breakdown of counselors. So we have 2 new counselors on our team this year. So this is a breakdown. The students do know. Luckily enough, they popped right into the office of our retired counselors, so students can find them very easily. So make note of that. And again, students are able to come in at lunch and make appointments with us. Upcoming events. We have our rep visits starting next week. We are going to be sending out a little email to the students to remind them of that. These rep visits happen during lunch, so we recognize that some of the seniors prefer to go out to lunch, and that's a great privilege. But if you have a college that's on your list and they're visiting, we highly, highly suggest that you stay in at lunch and you talk to those reps. Many of those reps will be reading the students' applications, and so any of those last-minute questions or ways to connect or just those type of things are great to happen. Those rep visits are in Naviance. They're already listed. So you can see from now through November when the colleges are visiting to mark your calendar. We will obviously, we just mentioned this, meeting with all of our seniors tomorrow during lunch. So that is one of the days that we are asking students to stay in, bring a bag lunch so that we can break down a little bit of the slideshow even more for them to make sure that they know how to make sure their applications get from here and from home and from their teachers, all of the colleges on time. And of course, we're having our college fair again this year at High School North. That's going to be on October 14th. There's a QR code there for everyone to scan to sign up through Strive Scan. We have a new feature this year where students will be able to sort colleges to make that night even more efficient for them and where they're going. I also want to make sure everyone knows that HESA, which is our financial aid support in New Jersey, they will be having a table at the college fair as well on the 14th. So it's not even just the colleges, it's also if you have financial aid questions, they will be at the fair as well. We're really going to talk for majority of tonight about the application procedures. And so if you know, applying to four-year colleges, there's a lot of parts to the application process. And so that is what we're going to spend our majority of our time doing tonight. And it's what we're going to spend a majority of our time doing tomorrow with our students. And I would say that this slide probably is one of the more important slides for everyone to understand about the process. Everyone is working at the same time. Everyone has different roles in the process. And you can see here with the student is the manager really of the process. They're managing not only their application and their application pieces, they're also the communicator about all of the things. So the person who needs to know the most about the college application process is definitely the student. They should be knowing what colleges they're applying to and their deadlines and what they require. And they should be telling us, both the counselor and the teachers here, what their deadlines are. And the parent is there in that supportive role. So just looking at this again, from our perspective, not only is the student doing their application, they're making sure that they contact their teachers accordingly through Naviance as well as in person or email to let them know about their recommendations and their deadlines. They are completing that rec packet that we asked them to do last year with their student input and their parent input and their resume. They are making their official requests in Naviance for us to send their transcript and their recommendation letters. They are handling the SAT, ACT scores, whether or not they need to be sent or if they're doing test optional. And then, of course, they are submitting their application. On our end, we are writing those recommendations for the student. Again, that student input is so imperative. We want to write the best recommendations that we can write, and that's why we ask for the student and the parent to brag about themselves. And many of the students have already done that, which is great. Those students who have not, we will be chatting with, but that's the reason for those inputs. We are also going to facilitate sending their transcripts, the secondary school report, which tells a little bit about the student as well as our school profile. And those are the parts that come from the school or the counselor side of things. And then the teacher facilitates the recommendation. And I say to students all the time, kind of think of it as a virtual mailbox that exists. You know, there's a virtual mailbox with their name on it at every university. They send their stuff, we send our stuff, the teacher sends their stuff. And when all the pieces are in that virtual mailbox at that deadline, that's when the admissions team is going to be able to open up the mailbox and read their full application with all the parts in that. And so we appreciate the parents being supportive in that role and, of course, encouraging their students to meet the deadlines and be the best manager and communicator they can be through this process. First steps, and hopefully students received the email over the summer and have already gotten to this point in the process, but if not, that's okay. We just want to remind everyone that we are looking to finalize our list of schools. That being said, there's different ways to apply to colleges. Some colleges have multiple methods of applying or applications, which are listed here. However, we want to stress that if a college is a Common App school, a Common Application school, that is the way that the student should apply to that college. Applying any other way complicates how all the school documents get to the college. So I think it's really important to make sure that students are making sure that they use the Common App as when it's offered. And that's a real important piece. The other piece to this too is to understand that regardless of what application they use, so say for example, they apply via Common App, or they're applying to California schools through the California application, they need to let us know through Naviance. So there's like two different formats here, or two different applications that we're going to talk about tonight. So most of what we speak to the students about is the Common App. That is the most popular application for colleges. It's the one that we, utilize the most. It's the one that speaks to Naviance the most. And so that is, what we're going to talk about mostly tonight in terms of the students understanding how to navigate that process. If there are other questions, again, the Common App is very reflective of other applications as well. We're here to help, but we're going to focus on that tonight, given that that's the most popular way that students apply to colleges. Again, this information was shared in August, but we want to just make sure everyone's aware. These are some common places on the Common App that students have questions along the way. The education section is really important, that they link High School South to their education system. Again, that helps once everything gets to that virtual mailbox and the college admissions rep is looking at their application, that they know where they're coming from and the type of school we are. You're providing that class size, which is 405, and we do not have a rank policy. The other part that students ask a little bit about is honors. That term sometimes gets confusing since we have honors classes here at High School South, but this really is referring to more of an honors award type situation like we have with our National Honor Society or our National Merit semifinalist type of award that comes with that. The other piece of the Common App that sometimes trips people up, but is also super, super important, is the FERPA. And this piece on the Common App, once you add your education, your name, and you have put on at least a college on your Common App. So it's just really important, again, as you're working through the Common App, that you kind of follow the steps of filling out the demographic information, adding a college to your Common App. And then once you've done that, you can go to this FERPA release form. It's very important for students to waive their rights here. What that really means, I know it's a lot of language, but it really is giving us permission to send their transcript. And it's also letting the colleges know that their recommendation letter is coming from us, the counselor, and not from the student, that it's an authentic rec written from us. So make sure that you waive your right in that section. Once you've waived your right, and once you've clicked that off in the FERPA, you only need to do it once. Once you do it once, it applies to all the schools in the Common App. So again, make sure that you waive your right. Any student who's thinking about early decision, very important that you recognize that early decision is a binding agreement. And as a result of that, when you click as your choice of term, fall, and then you choose preferred admission plan, early decision, you are signing off on that binding agreement. We as counselors receive a form that we need to fill out electronically through our Naviance portal that indicates that you're applying ED and that we understand that piece of the process. We also see that the parents are also signing off on that ED agreement as well. It's a restrictive agreement. So make sure when you're thinking about early decision, you've read all the fine print, you know about it being a binding agreement, and that you make sure that you sign that understanding what that is. That is different than a restricted early action situation. That is not binding. There are rules in regards to REA as well that students and parents should read, but there is no required early decision agreement that a student and parent has to sign. So again, things to be aware of in the process as you go along through the Common App. Again, we use Naviance. I just want to kind of bring up, so students are applying to college on the Common Application, okay? And they're filling out the Common Application. When they fill out the Common Application, that information is going to go to the colleges, and that's, again, for them and the colleges to read all their information, including their essays. We in West Windsor, we use a program called Naviance, and you've heard us talk about it, to help us facilitate documents from the school to get to the colleges. So as you can imagine, with a class size of 405 students, and many of which are looking at four-year colleges, we're talking about thousands and thousands of documents. So that is why we use Naviance. So it's just really important that students and parents recognize that The Common App is their application, and Naviance helps us to facilitate the school documents to the colleges, okay? So the things like the recommendation letter, the school profile, and the transcripts. So one of the first things that students need to make sure to check at this point is that that student brag packet has been done under the surveys. Again, when we talk about the recommendation packet, we're talking about the student input and the parent input. We also love to get students updated resumes, especially if things happen over the summer. And then, of course, that FERPA waiver. And when we need that, we're talking about both on the Common App, that they've done that at that point. But also we know in Genesis as well, most of you have signed off on that release as well. So again, we utilize this resource to help send our school documents, which becomes really important. So again, if you've done the pieces on Common App, again, you're starting with Common App, you filled out that education system in its part and your name, and you've added a college and you've done the FERPA piece, you can come on to Naviance and you can get onto your account students. And when you go to the tab colleges you're applying to, you're going to see this red box. At that point, you want to make sure that you fill out or click on the red box to match your account. When you match your account, it's going to prompt you to put in your Common App information. And when you do that and you match, now Naviance and Common App are going to start talking to one another. And that's the beautiful thing about using Naviance, where it allows for, again, that virtual mailbox to exist because we have linked those two together and they're linked to the student. So you start, and again, on the Common App side, and then once you go into your Naviance account, once you have started on your Common App, you're going to be able to match these accounts and they're going to be able to start talking to one another to make sure all those documents go in there. Last year, when we met with students, they were thinking about and brainstorming colleges and putting them under the colleges they were thinking about tab, which made sense as juniors, right? That is where they were brainstorming. Students, you'll remember last year how we told you to heart schools that you were interested in, and that's how they ended up in your colleges you're thinking about page. We're going to be assuming at this point, many of those colleges that you were thinking about are now colleges that you are applying to. Again, going back to my point that I said earlier, because you know why it's a fit and it's a match for you. And so if that's the case, you will be going into your Naviance account and you're going to be looking at them under colleges that you're thinking about. And you're going to be clicking, as you see here, on the schools that you're thinking about or that you want to apply to, and you're going to be moving them to the application list. Upon doing that, you'll be able to see that the colleges then will start to show up onto your colleges that you are applying to list. As you note on here, I just want to make sure you see the note down below. Very important, again, that students are adding the colleges that they are requesting transcripts for and recommendations for on Common App. One little trick that students will start to see is once their accounts are matched, when they are on Naviance, they will see that Common App will talk to Naviance and they'll start to see their colleges showing up in their colleges that they are applying to list. So again, so you're on the colleges you're thinking about page. And again, we're going to go over this with students tomorrow. You're clicking on the boxes for whatever colleges that you want to apply to. You're clicking that move to application list. Upon doing that, you're going to see that the colleges will show up in these little boxes and you'll have to answer some questions on Naviance as well. So earlier we talked about how on Common App you mentioned what term you're going to apply to and what type of decision plan that you have decided to apply to. Same thing on Naviance. So there are 3 examples here where we have the University of California at Berkeley, which is a non-Common App school. You'll see that this student is applying regular decision. They are going to send their application directly to the institution. And with the ACT and SAT and AC, that's really a question that is just a general question for gathering information. We don't send scores, but they'll answer that. You'll notice here for a rider, you see the early action term. You see on Dickinson a specific program term, but both of those schools are on Common App. So the student here is choosing correctly to use the Common App. And once you've answered those questions, students, Then you're going to click Add Transcripts. Upon adding transcript, you'll see this little screen here, where again, it's going to ask you a question. Do you want to have us send your initial transcript? Yes, that's your first senior transcript. Later on in the process, we may be sending your mid-year transcript. We may send, and then we'll send your final transcript to your final school. And then we do not send test scores. So just a reminder, if your prompt or you see that in the questions on Naviance, you may answer them, but understanding that you are in control of your test scores, students, that's not something that we as a school manage for you. After answering these check boxes and these drop downs, you'll hit Request Transcript. In hitting Request Transcript, I'll go back to the screen one time. That is also you requesting your recommendation letter from your counselor. Sometimes that is confusing to students. Naviance does not have the option for us to also include that. And so understand that if you are requesting a transcript and that school does allow for a counselor rec to be written and sent and is part of the application process, when you click Request Transcript, you are also then indicating to your counselor that you would like for them to write your recommendation as well and send that. And again, all this can be done in your Common App section of your transcript. So part of the process, making sure that what you put on Common App is also what you're requesting on Naviance. And in doing so, making sure that we're doing it in a timely manner so we can make sure that we can get all of the school documents out on time. Teacher recommendations. Students now can actually request for their teachers to write their recommendations on Naviance officially. We met with them in the spring and we were encouraging them to make sure that they were talking to their teachers and asking their teachers in person, hopefully, if not by email, for recommendation letters. By now, hopefully, they've asked their 1 or 2 teachers and they've agreed. By now, hopefully, they've filled out the student input, as you see at the top of the screen on the left, for their teachers. Now is when they can actually go in and put into Naviance their teachers that they want to send recommendations for each school that they are applying to. So you'll notice on this screen, when they get to the letters of recommendation page, students, you'll see that you're able to have a drop down of teachers. And in the drop down of teachers, so I'm trying to use my mouse, apologies, you'll be able to select then your colleges that you're able to have your teacher apply to or send your recommendation to. This piece of the process is important for students to know what colleges take how many recommendation letters. Some colleges will not accept more than 1. So before you go to this page and you request your teacher, think thoroughly about that. You'll notice even on this page here for the example, you'll see that American requires 1 but allows 2. And so students would be able to send 2 recommendation letters if they choose to American. So again, Naviance, because it talks to Common App, it really allows for students to see the important parts and navigates it pretty easily for them to know how many recommendation letters, but of course you can definitely look on the website. Moving on to another piece of the process, which is the self-reported transcript and academic record. More and more schools are moving to utilizing this system, of which basically the students input their own grades into a self-reported record. They have access to their grades on Genesis as we speak, an unofficial transcript. Schools like Rutgers and many of the state universities are using this system to allow for them to receive grades in a common way. And it's really important, again, that students realize that they can be filling this out as they're doing their applications. Sometimes students wait until the end and then they're filling out this academic record and they're trying to meet deadlines. This is something that they can create an account for now and utilize their unofficial transcripts in Genesis to complete now. Some of the schools, specifically Rutgers, is going to ask for a New Jersey Smart ID that is on Naviance. Rutgers, too, again, our most popular university of our students and the one that our students choose to go to the most. They require that students apply first and get a Rutgers ID to put on their academic record, their STARS report, and then submit. And so with a November 1 early action deadline for Rutgers, we are encouraging all of our students to get started on this academic record early, as well as making sure that they apply to Rutgers in time to make sure that they can submit their STARS report in time of that deadline. We have more information that we share with students at our lunch meeting tomorrow. But again, this is another piece of the process for some of the schools, which rather than receiving transcripts from us, they want the students to input the transcript in their grades themselves. Deadlines do matter. It's very important. We care about these deadlines a lot in the counseling office. We stress with students all the time that it's really important that they, again, communicate with us in a timely manner so that we can make sure that we can process all the different documents for all of our students by their deadlines. So on here, the students can see that if they have a November 1st deadline, they're going to be requesting transcripts from us by October 10th. And that means that the students know by October 10th that they are going to be applying to that college for November 1. It does not mean that the student has their application done by October 10th. That is not what that means. It just means that they have they're pretty sure, if not 100% positive, that they're going to be applying to that school early action or early decision on November 1. So that means that in Naviance, the student has done their rec packet, their student input, their parent input, their resume. They've gone on the Common App. They did that FERPA release. They have in Naviance clicked their colleges to the page, right, and to request. And now they're on colleges I'm applying to, but they're also on requested transcripts. All of those things need to be done by October 10th. And then that starts our clock in the counseling office to ensure that we are able to get the recommendation letter written and finished and uploaded, as well as the transcript, the school profile, and the secondary school report. This is also a good deadline for students to think about with their teachers. So really that 3-week window is really important in making sure that everything gets to where it needs to get to on time. You're seeing other dates on here for later dates. The one other thing that I just want to mention for the good of the group tonight is that we do not work over winter break. So it's just really important that if students have January 1 deadlines, they are communicating that with their counselors in advance of that winter break. We do not have anybody in the office at that time to be able to assist. So once we get closer to that date, we will remind students of that to make sure that they all their documents can get in on time. FAFSA, again, we mentioned this earlier. So this is another piece of the process. This is where parents can come in and be more of assistance in the process. But as students are, again, applying to college via the application, utilizing Naviance to alert everyone of their deadlines and the schools that they're applying to, filling out maybe that self-reported academic record, they're also then completing the FAFSA for financial aid. They told us this year, again, October 1 seems to be the date where the FAFSA will go live. If the FAFSA is completed and submitted to a college, when the student gets back their admissions decision, a lot of times financial aid can come more quickly the sooner that the FAFSA has been completed. We have, again, a great organization and support system here in New Jersey called HESA. They have lots of financial aid workshops for families. They're on here. And again, you'll get these slides and these links at the end. And of course, I already mentioned this before, but very important if you're already, feeling like you don't need to talk to as many colleges on College Fair Night, hitting up the HESA table is always a great idea. What's next in this process? Tomorrow, as you see on here, all the counselors are going to be meeting with the students in certain areas of the building at lunch. This is a lot of information tonight about the procedures in the application process. And so tomorrow we want to just break it down and allow for them to ask any questions that they may have of us. Similarly, later on PSAT day, We will also have a session with our seniors where it's mostly a workshop where they can work on things with us in the classroom. And that's also an opportunity as they get later on in the process that they might have questions for us that they can ask. So there's a lot of different touch points that they have with us. As they already know, and like I said, some of them were already doing this already, they can make appointments with us during their study hall. If they have more than just a quick question. If it's a quick question, email is great. Those lunch pop-ins are great for those quick questions. The other thing that I wanted to share with everyone tonight is we have a great resource called the College Process Answers. Many of the things that we talked about on here in regards to letters of recommendation, the self, reported academic record, that STARS report, we have links to those particular items so that if you're going along in the process and you're wondering, wait a minute, how do I fill out that transcript? How do I request a transcript? What do I need to do for letters of rec? How do I navigate Naviance? There's a college process answers page that we put together for students. So we really want to just make sure that students, again, have all the resources they need to be able to answer the questions that come up so frequently. We will post that as well in our Google Classroom. It's also around the school as well through a QR code. So again, lots of information tonight, kind of an overview, but we will be breaking it down as we move through or in these lunch sessions. I want to kind of take a second to see, I know I went through a lot tonight and we went through it quickly. I'm not sure if the counselors are seeing any questions on the chat or things or in the Q&A that seem to be common questions for the good of the group. As we get to the end of this presentation, that might be helpful for everyone to hear.
Hi, Ms. Rooney, nothing that would be big for the whole group. Questions have been great and we're working through them. If we aren't able to catch you tonight before the end of the presentation, please make sure your student sees their counselor for additional clarification.
Okay, sounds good. So we are, again, going to be meeting with the students tomorrow. If I can, suggest anything for everyone on this call tonight is to make sure, again, allow the student to drive the process and be the driver here and allow us to support them as they go through this. And again, utilize the resources. Right after we end this webinar tonight, I'll make sure that I post these slides on the students' Google Classrooms along with the college process answers that they can see that. And then tomorrow, like I said, at lunch, we will be available to answer the student specific questions. At this time, it looks like the counselors are saying we're good. We're going to stop the webinar. And again, we'll post this recording on the website as well.